Hi, I'm Julia Smith, Wolf Project Field Supervisor for the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Today on Arizona Wildlife Views, we've got an update into how the management of the Mexican Wolf Reintroduction Project is going. Plus, a look at how fishing can actually be healing. And later, we'll go on a visit to the Saguaro National Monument. All this and more on Arizona Wildlife Views.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Since the late 90s, the Arizona Game and Fish Department has partnered with other wildlife agencies to monitor the Mexican wolf. Today, we revisit the Mexican Wolf Reintroduction Project and take a look at the latest studies after monitoring the wolf's role in the wild and near the rural communities where it lives.
How's our vital signs, you guys?
Condition critical. That about sums up this patient's family history.
Respiratory rate seems steady.
He's part of a population that was nearly wiped off the planet, a species classified as endangered since 1976. But this individual Mexican wolf is doing just fine. He was captured minutes ago by members of the Mexican Wolf Interagency Field Team as part of its annual count and capture operation.
We want to count the number of wild wolves we have in Arizona and New Mexico to be able to evaluate the reintroduction process.
That process started in 1977 when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service established a captive breeding program with just 7 Mexican wolves. 2 decades later, in 1998, the first captive-bred wolves were released into the wild. The Interagency Field Team has been managing this experimental population ever since.
If it's like, all right, yeah, that's one, then the gunner's like, all right, well, let me get ready.
It's a partnership that includes the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Arizona Game and Fish, the Forest Service, Wildlife Services, and the White Mountain Apache Tribe.
That's your first location, count them, and then you go to Panther Creek, try to catch her.
There's a little bit of open capture opportunity there. There are power lines through the area.
In early 2017, biologists spent a dozen days counting and capturing wolves by helicopter. The key to finding them is this.
By having working radio and satellite collars on wolves, we are able to go to the known wolf packs that we have.
Wrapping the collars with tape of different colors and patterns helps biologists visually identify wolves in the wild.
This is the collar from the last wolf we processed. That is alpha female 1333 of the Hoodoo pack. We collared her as a pup in 2013 when she was just a few months old, about 6 months old. You can see it has a very small battery pack here. That battery pack is supposed to last about 1 year, but we got lucky and we got about 3 years of battery life out of it. So that took her from her transition as a pup from the blue stem pack to the alpha female of the Hoodoo pack. So this little collar has helped us do a lot in tracking her and her pack.
Logistically, hit them on the way to Panther Creek, on the way to, yeah, that all makes sense, Mike. This is just a plane.
Each day, the count and capture operation starts with a small airplane that uses radio telemetry to search for priority packs.
Location is 33.72.
There is a power line that runs east-west.
Once located, the helicopter crew sets out to find them.
For our capture priorities, we're looking at wolves that do not have radio collars or wolves that do have radio collars that have failed. The helicopter has the pilot, the dart gunner, and then a mugger. That person will actually get out and physically bring the wolf back to the helicopter.
33.755.
When pursuing a wolf, the pilot does his best to give the dart gunner a clear shot. It's a dangerous operation, so everyone's on the lookout for potential hazards like power lines. The airplane keeps an eye on the helicopter from above.
Apologize if I already asked this, but did we get an ID on the animal?
And Mike Godwin maintains radio contact with both.
10-4, thanks, sir.
When a wolf is darted, the team waits for the anesthesia to kick in. Then the mugger sets out to retrieve it.
To verify I heard you correctly, the mugger was out.
Yes, that's correct. The mugger is out.
And sometimes, if necessary, the dart gunner will get out and assist the mugger with the retrieval and recovery of the wolf back into the helicopter.
They're trying to get the wolf. It's kind of halfway down, maybe 100 feet down a ridge. It's kind of tricky to get that stuff.
Once the wolf is back in the helicopter, then they will fly that animal to the staging area or the processing area where the ground crew is prepared and readily waiting for the arrival of that wolf.
Start a tiny bit lower so we still have a little more room.
Susan
above the
Dix
blood
is
spot,
one
I
of the
think,
Wolf Project veterinarians.
I'm monitoring anesthesia. I'm checking for health issues, giving vaccines. We draw blood. We do disease surveillance testing and monitoring. We also bank a lot of it, and we also do genetics, verifying that this animal is who we think she is, as well as that she's healthy, things like that. So this is gold. We got a lot.
39.5 millimeters is her upper canine spread.
Everyone's happy with her anesthetic state or vitals? Anybody noticing anything? It was very smooth. The level of anesthesia of the animal was perfect. All the biometric data on the animal seemed very good. We collected a lot of data. We didn't have to rush. There were no human hazards. There were no animal hazards. It was a very good processing.
The animal is placed in a crate after it has been processed, and then it is allowed to recover in that crate under observation. And then when that animal is ready to be released, then it will be taken out into the field and released by a predetermined means. Our goal is to get the wolf back with its pack, and that can be a challenge based on the location of where it was captured. A lot of the releases this year were snowmobile releases. Hey, good job today, you guys. Incredible teamwork. Rick, congratulations. First wolf darted. What do we have for safety issues or just overall concerns?
At the end of each day, there's a thorough debriefing.
8 wolves captured total in Arizona so far. 7, thank you. 8's optimistic. Objectives for tomorrow: count blue stem again. We'll check Maverick, see where they're at. Get some rest. Stay vigilant, stay sharp. Let's not get complacent. We got a lot ahead of us still.
The interagency field team manages Mexican wolves all year long, and the year-end count is a valuable measure of its progress.
Our minimum count for 2016 is 113 wolves in the wild, and that's in Arizona and New Mexico, and that's a minimum count.
In other words, there were at least 113 Mexican wolves in the wild at the end of the count.
This is the highest number since the start of the project in 1998. "2016
was a big year for small things. Biologists counted 50 wolf pups, and that doesn't include 6 captive-born pups like these that were placed into the litters of wild wolf packs. It's a process called cross-fostering or simply fostering.
It involves taking wolf pups at a very young age from captivity and placing them into a wild wolf den to be raised wild.
It was first attempted in Arizona in 2016. First in April when 2 7-day-old pups were placed with the elkhorn pack.
Okay, he's joining.
He's in the pack.
Then in May, 2 5-day-old pups were fostered into the Panther Creek pack.
This is a female.
Fostering has proven successful with red wolves back east. In Arizona, it's now used exclusively for adding genetic diversity to the wild Mexican wolf population.
The alternative would be taking wolves from captivity that have a genetically diverse composition, but those wolves are adult wolves and they are naive wolves.
Because they're raised in captivity, they're habituated to humans and often exhibit nuisance behaviors in the wild. This experimental population of Mexican wolves is making progress thanks to decades of adaptive management and compassionate conservation. And while the 2016 count is encouraging, biologists are well aware that the road to recovery is rough.
It's a very long, challenging process, and we just have to stay the steady path. And it has to be based in science, and it has to be based in social acceptance and cooperation with the stakeholders while recovering this species.
The helicopter lifted off and the entire crew is on the helicopter with a wolf.
Copy that.
Up next, we all know fishing can be a great escape, but take a look at how it can also be healing, especially for some Arizona veterans.
It's just very serene. Very, very serene.
This water works wonders for aching bodies and troubled minds. Just ask the wounded military veterans who come here to experience the healing powers of fly fishing.
You know, being out here in nature and experiencing this has just been something that I really have needed.
It takes all your problems away when you're catching those big fish.
I needed something to help ease my mind and forget about my pain sometime.
This is Silver Creek, an 840-acre wildlife area near Show Low that's owned and managed by Arizona Game and Fish. It's a popular spot for anglers of all ages and a great place to catch trout all year long. But the morning of October 1st is extra special. It's not only the start of a 6-month catch and release season at Silver Creek, it's also an opportunity to reel in some really big fish.
Here we go again.
Game and Fish stocks them here into the upper section of Silver Creek. It's an area off limits to fishing all summer long. But during the catch and release season, it's open to the public.
Look at the size of that fish.
Holy smokes, that thing is
Isn't that
huge.
nice?
And on opening day, Game and Fish invites the wounded warriors with Project Healing Waters fly fishing to be among the first to cast a line, catch a memory, and forget about their troubles for a while.
If it runs, you let them go because you're going to snap the leader up.
Oh my God.
Okay.
You were holding on too tight to your line.
Yeah.
You got it.
Good going, girl.
Oh. I'm sorry. I got all emotional.
Here, let me have you ride.
Oh.
Fish on.
Nice one.
That is my initial experience in fly fishing. So anytime I catch a fish, learn something new, it's always a good day.
This guy's a runner.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, talk to him.
Come on. Get back here. Being a veteran, I was diagnosed with PTSD and stuff, and some of the experiences in Iraq, just kind of like my house was my safe haven and stuff. So I didn't, if I was in my safe haven, why would I want to go anywhere? Come on. No, please.
Who's tiring who out?
Tiring me out. Oh, nice. And if it wasn't for my wife, Mary, she's the one that actually found the organization online, ended up going to an orientation with the Phoenix Project Healing Waters and got me hooked into it and stuff. I love fishing. Thanks to Project Healing Waters for teaching me how to do this. My first trip with them, and biggest fish I ever caught was these two right now. So It's a good day, definitely a good day.
Oh man, today's been awesome. Been catching a whole bunch of nice big trout.
There are some amazing fish here today. A lot of these guys have never come close to catching a fish this size.
It's just a good opportunity for people to come out here and fish in general as far as the catch and release season, and it's unique in that it's one of the only waters where we stock really big fish during that season for people to come out and catch during the winter time.
Ah, got him. Fish on. Let's take a look. Oh, he's a hog.
The fish that are in here are usually between, there's nothing going to be really smaller than about 3 pounds, up to around an 8 or 9 pound range. So they're really big fish in here. So during the catch and release season, you can only use a single barbless hook, and you can't use any bait. You have to either use a lure or a fly.
Oh, there he is.
These we have to play quite a bit. It takes a couple minutes to get them in and land them.
You gonna take them down, or you gonna put them in the net?
And get them back into the water as fast as we can so they'll survive.
Beautiful. We're trying to build up and to spread the word on how much fun this is and how much this heals, because when you're out here and you're fishing, you're not thinking about everything else. You're focused on what you're doing, the task at hand, and it's so much fun. It gives you a break.
Right there, come on. It's like, holy smokes.
Okay.
Oh, oh,
No.
oh. Oh, shucks.
Our group meets once a week to tie flies, and we have a place we can fish once a week. And so we try to create a family. It just gives them somewhere else other than the hospital or their own family to communicate. They get to spend time with people who understand what they're going through.
I had PTSD real bad, and I didn't leave the house, and I didn't talk to people.
Come on, buddy.
I used to love fishing, but I was so isolated and stuck in my house that I didn't do those things. I didn't have enjoyment in life anymore. And this is a big part of my life, Project Healing Waters. I mean, I feel they saved my life.
I really think I've gotten more out of this than the soldiers. This is the best thing I have ever done. It's given me a purpose since I retired. It feels good to have people come up and tell you that you've changed their lives.
I've had 2 lower back surgeries, PTSD. I've also had to deal with MST, military sexual trauma. Before Project Healing Waters, all I could focus on was what I couldn't do.
There you go.
They've taught me is what I can do. I can still be outside. And I can still enjoy the camaraderie of being with friends. It's changed my life.
This is what it's about therapy. That's why it's called Healing Waters.
It seems that you'll find love for trees throughout American literature, but nothing for the poor old saguaro. Maybe if the poet Joyce Kilmer had been born in Arizona instead of New Jersey, perhaps his famous poem Trees would have simply been titled Saguaros.
We are in Saguaro National Park, more specifically our East District, known as the Rincon Mountain District.
The saguaro cactus is an iconic Arizona symbol, so popular in fact there's a national monument to them in Tucson.
Saguaro National Park was established in 1933 for exactly the reason you would expect it to be, for the saguaros. So here in the Sonoran Desert, because water is such a limiting factor, the cactus really become a very important, almost a keystone species for all of the other plants and wildlife that live here. When you're around a saguaro cactus, you'll notice there are woodpeckers, there are doves, there are other small mammal species that are hanging out around that cactus most of the year.
With the right growing conditions, saguaros can live to be 150 to 200 years old. When they reach between 50 to 70 years of age, saguaros can grow arms, although not all of them do.
In May is when we start to see our saguaros bloom. Those blooms are about the size of my hand, and they're a creamy white flower with a very deep yellow center, perfect for bats and doves and bees all to stick their heads down in there and pull out that really sweet nectar. That moisture is going to sustain those animals when there has not been rain here in several weeks to months. The saguaro cactus does collect water. In fact, most of its tissue, probably 80% of its tissue, is actually storing the water. And that makes sense because here in the desert, we have water as our limited resource, right? So if you're going to get water, you're going to hang on to it as tightly as you can. And the cactus have become masters at that water storage.
Saguaros grow up to be massive and prickly, but when they're babies, they're delicate and need the help of other plant life.
They need the protection of the other plants around them. If you travel through the Sonoran Desert, you'll see mesquite trees and palo verde trees and ironwood trees, and we call those trees nurse trees because they provide a little bit of shade, they provide a little bit of extra organic material in the soil, and baby saguaros do best under those conditions. So often if we have a baby saguaro that starts to germinate out in a flat, it's gonna get too hot, or it's gonna get too cold, or it's gonna get stepped on, or it's gonna get eaten. But if you have a baby saguaro that lives under a mesquite tree, it's hidden, it has shade, it gets a little bit of extra water that gets slowed down. So under that tree, it kind of acts like an umbrella. You get a little bit more protection. The saguaro cactus is the icon of the American Southwest. When you think about the Southwest of the United States, if you think about old Western movies, you're thinking about the saguaro cactus. It is only found here in southern Arizona and northern Mexico in the Sonoran Desert.
While the saguaro doesn't get much love in books, it does captivate film and television audiences all over the world. They're synonymous with cowboys.
Whether he was supposed to be in Texas, or he was supposed to be in New Mexico, or he was supposed to be in Arizona, there were always these saguaro cactus. So what's interesting to me is when people think about the desert Southwest and they go and visit the Chihuahuan Desert, or they go to visit the Mojave Desert, they expect these saguaro cactus to be everywhere, but really, you have to be here in order to see them.
Yes, there are writings about giving trees or about a tree that grows in Brooklyn, but just remember this.
Every saguaro is unique. So every saguaro has its own personality, has its own story to tell, and every person who comes to visit tends to have their own relationship with a saguaro. I remember the first time I came out looking across the landscape and going, oh, there's a perfect one, because the perfect ones were exactly how the cartoonists used to draw them and say, you know, the cartoons featuring the Southwest. Well, that might seem perfect in a two-dimensional world, but there are so many other qualities to a saguaro. Multiple arms, beautiful flowers, scars that tell a story, arms that droop down because that tells a story. They carry their stories in the way that they appear to us, and they often will share those stories if you slow down and pay attention.
That's it for this episode, but remember to get out there and enjoy some of those breathtaking Arizona wildlife views. We'll see you next time.